Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to the Australian version of Beyond the Mountains of Madness. Well, I say that. Uh, the noble SS Gabrielle having just pulled into Port Melbourne after a calm and peaceful journey across the Pacific with no real events occurring. Well, at least none that completely led to anybody's demise in the party. Uh, Members of the crew were perhaps not so fortunate. Um, so, yes, it is October the 12th, 1933. And the SS Gabrielle has finally laid port inside of Port Melbourne. The gangplanks have gone out towards the eagerly awaiting horde of journalists, photographers, dock workers, etc. Starkweather, in his best um, expedition outfit, has stepped off onto the ship's ladder leading down to the quay and is doing his absolute best to schmooze and woo the crowd with tales of daring do and glory to come. Meanwhile, uh, Professor Moore, being ever the more practical man, has gathered most of the expedition um, and basically laid out the plan for how you're going to attempt to resupply, given there's a you've made your way through quite a lot of the Pemmican stock at this point. So there's that. Uh, there's all the regular perishable foodstuffs. There's, in fact, probably the need to install a whole fridge um, down on in hold three. There's also the need to restore camera equipment, radio equipment, etc., that was sabotaged. Um, but it's basically all in hand, and you have a number of days in port, so it shouldn't be a huge problem. At least that's what Professor Moore thinks. Um, Now, of course, the whole town of Melbourne is on fate with the excitement of the arrival of the Gabrielle, which means that on the by the evening of the 13th, um, you're all given an excuse to get out your fine dining gear, where there is a gala dinner in your honor at one of the main theaters. And there are lots of speeches. Starkweather is presented with a key to the city. Um, there is all sorts of perfectly normal to Australian fare served. Uh, there seems to be a never ending supply of drinks of all kinds. And of course, since this isn't the USA, they are flowing quite freely. And by the end of the evening, I suspect that it's quite a convivial group of expeditioners that make their way back towards the ship. The slight issue being that there isn't actually enough transport for you to ride back to the ship, so it's about a three-quarter of a mile walk down to the quayside. But having said that, it's mid October. Spring has definitely sprung. It's quite a pleasant evening since we're in the southern hemisphere. And I think that's where we'll open the camera, as it were, if there's anything particular that anybody wants to tag on to a unusually pleasant evening.
Now, was this the type of dinner where there was like a smoking room to the side? Like, was it just dinner or was there like brandy and cigars after?
Oh, there was definitely brandy and cigars before, during, and after.
Um, Stoddard is enjoying the walk because three-quarters of a mile isn't actually that bad. He's enjoying the nice spring day, spring evening with a little bit of a buzz and a cigar as he's walking down to the ship. Um, he, if yeah, he probably has an extra one for later in a pocket.
One for the ice cap hidden away. Got it.
I was honestly planning on like during the downtime at some point he's going to pick up like a package of like cigarillos or something because they're smaller and travel better. Just something because at a certain point breathing hot air is gonna just need we needed to cut the edge. But right now that's not what that's for. This is just kind of enjoying.
And I'm gonna just tell them all that, yeah, smoking I think is gonna kill you. And then I just take a big swig of brandy.
Purely
It's
medicinal.
a more pleasant way of dying than a rock slide.
You do have a point. I take another swig of brandy. I'm not going for a light buzz.
Valentina's probably enjoying the stroll with the weather being as nice as it is, and realizing that it's going to be one of the last times once they get back on the ship that they're going to be able to enjoy that. So
Wigglesworth isn't much of a drinker, but he can enjoy himself nonetheless.
Oh, absolutely. And so the morning of the 14th comes along, perhaps somewhat slower for some people than for others. Um, and there is a little bit of consternation. The resupply and shopping isn't quite going to plan, but it's at least proceeding. The big problem, it turns out, is that there is no pemmican ready supply to be had, but they have managed to track down a basically a food factory that would be capable of producing said mixture of meats, fats, etc. The problem being they don't really have the staff for it. So a lot of the ship's personnel gets pulled in to basically stuff cart, cartons and boxes of pemmican, which is not exactly the most pleasant of work, but if it comes to not having anything to eat on the pack, then it's worth the effort ahead of time. the net effect of the mixture of the peculiar contents of Australian lager, and wine, and brandy, along with whatever meat was in the meat pie last night, um, does have an interesting effect on our fellow investigators, in that you also wake up with twice your hit points.
It was a super brandy, wasn't it?
It was definitely a good brandy, yes.
I'm going to assume this isn't something we need to mark down because today is only going to last so long. But it was a very nice party. We're feeling rested and relieved to not be eating pemmican.
Is this a thing that is permanent, Stefan, or just for the day?
This is permanent.
Okay, so we're going to Pulp Rules then.
Oh, we
This is
do
the
record this then. This isn't a one-day thing.
no. This is the start of the slippery slope of the pulpification, as it were.
Um, so actually, what are the restocks going? So obviously, there's pemmican, which is like a dried. It's like a dried bread thing.
It's a. I have
Actually, look this up. One
the
second.
I think
description here.
it's like
Uh,
meat, fat,
Right,
berries.
right. Yes. Okay. Um, can we? So yeah, pemmican. It's a travel tallow
Hmm.
dried meat, sometimes fruit. Um, so while they're looking at that, is it possible to poke at like, do they? Can we suggest that maybe they look at if there's other dried things to mix in just for flavor, like some
well,
jerky?
they do have a sort of a special recipe which includes, for every 1,000 pounds of the base mixture of beef tallow, dried ground meat, wheat germ, molasses, and cod liver oil, they add 2 pints of lemon squeezings to give it that little
It's a
bit of
start.
Is, we're
freshness.
probably gonna have to update our hit points manually.
Um,
I edited mine, so right click and edit. So should we do a luck refresh as well, Stefan, since we're here?
that sounds like an excellent idea.
Get all the luck we can get. Yep, nope.
Eh, 72 luck, but I still failed.
Damn you, Wigglesworth. Good job.
So is that 2d10 back, or how does that go again?
Should be a D10.
Yeah, straight D10.
One d10.
Yep.
Well, I shouldn't have gloated before I rolled this one. Let's see.
Yeah, we're still on the base game
Aha!
refresh rather than the pulp luck.
Well, you don't have to roll next time unless you spend luck. So I believe
Wigglesworth is
99 is
feeling
the
very
max.
lucky.
I want to play some cards in the ship.
We're up to 82 luck.
Oh, I read that as the 89 was what you had for some reason.
That'd be even better.
These extra hit points are just going to get me into more trouble. So
I know, I'm looking at my Harvard PhD guy like he's a tank. Just picture him ripping off his tweed sweater vest and exposing the Superman S.
Well, it is about that time in history.
It's a bird. It's a plane.
And remember, at this point in history, Superman was not Henry Cavill or any of that. Superman was built a lot more like a farm boy. So he was much more power lifter tank. Like, yeah, he's got a little bit of a, torso V, but we're going rhombus, not Dorito here.
It's a Harvard geologist. Help us. Help
We're
us,
picking up
Wigglesworth.
rocks and putting them
What
down again.
what kind of rock is this? Help.
None that we have ever come across.
That's
Kind
what
of
he's hoping
soapy
for.
feeling.
Every scientist wants one of those. So we double the hit points, we check the luck. Is there anything else that we need to update?
No, I think systemically that will set us perfectly shipshape and Bristol fashion.
Love it.
And
I definitely get pictures of everybody making the pemmican and stuff like that.
I'd say go ahead and make a luck roll.
I made it.
Okay. Fortunately, you don't end up with a whole lot of pemmican effluent on your camera gear in doing so. But yeah, you absolutely have pemmican making pictures, which in a way is a cunning way of making sure that you don't get caught up too much in actually having to make pemmican. And the 18th finally rolls around. Most of the supplies have been um, obtained and brought aboard. There is right at the last minute, there is a large truck that squeals its brakes as it pulls up alongside the forward gangplank to the SS Gabrielle. Starkweather jumps out. There's a gang of stevedores go round the back and start bringing out large cylinders. Presumably, these are to replace the oxygen tanks that had been emptied out as part of the Henning sabotage activities. So you have oxygen for the mountain climbs, yay! And
Yay, mountain climbs.
with much fanfare and the traditional appearing out of nowhere brass band that shows up on any decent ship sailing to send you off on your journey. The SS Gabrielle leaves port mid morning of the 18th. And you're brought to mind of an extract from Admiral Byrd's journal that hangs in the wheelhouse of the Gabrielle. Owing to the bad weather that struck us yesterday, I made no entries in my log. Thursday night the ship pitched so we got little sleep. Seas were breaking over the taffrail, the wind velocity approached 50 miles per hour, and the glass dropped sharply. Matters were decidedly serious. My first fears were for the cargo on deck and for the dogs. Fortunately, the gale blew us along the line of our course. Had we broached into the trough of a sea over our decks must have been swept as clean as a pantry itself. It's from December 8th, 1928. But with cargo stowed and repairs complete, passengers and crew safely tucked aboard, you set sail. You head on southeast around the curve of Tasmania and south into the storm-swept reaches of the Southern Ocean. The sky is clear, the sea is calm, and everything is perfect for your journey south. Professor Moore holds a meeting in the officer's lounge. He's got a map of the South Polar Water hanging from the wall behind him. I need to do that. I have here the weather news. The reports are both good and bad, but they are in fact what we've been hoping for. It says here that spring in the far south has been extremely stormy, and that it's likely to continue that way for the next few weeks. This means two things. We're likely to meet very bad weather soon, possibly a lot of it, but it also means that the polar pack ice will be pushed out early from the Ross Sea. This last is very important indeed, for once the pack has been pushed out, we can push our way in. It may have occurred to some of you that we, that is, all of us, are going south far earlier than customary. This is true, and it is a gamble. It is, however, a gamble that the Miskatonic University expedition also made 3 years ago. What was successful for them will, I hope, succeed for us as well. By proceeding early into the teeth of the storm, so to speak, we gain valuable time in Antarctica, and I hope to make good use of that time. Our planned course has us entering the ice pack due north of Cape Adair and proceeding southward through the Ross Sea to Ross Island, where we will make landfall. Whether this is possible will, of course, depend on the ice. We will enter the pack where it seems safest and, well, improvise from there. If all goes well, we shall be set up on the Antarctic continent less than a month from today. If luck is with us, it could be much sooner than that. Now, for the remainder of the voyage and even our time on the ice, we will reset the ship's clocks to antipodal time. That is 12 hours ahead of Greenwich, as the actual time on the shelf. Since we will be inside the Antarctic Circle and therefore have perpetual sunlight, we just need a common measure. And I think I am going to say that overall, there's going to be another 2 weeks opportunity of various training. As we head on south. So we might as well take
And
care
we
of.
get 1 week. We get one roll per week, correct?
Yeah,
Let me pull up the list real quick. It's the same one in the Discord, right?
yeah.
I will probably just do one of survival and one of radio operator to keep those two going up.
Certainly solid skills to have in your back pocket.
We're just doing 2 right now, right?
Yeah.
I got one up anyway.
I'm gonna do the dog sled and radio operator.
I did that wrong. It's an int roll.
This is a fail or succeed roll.
Well, I was going off the.
Yeah. So if you make the int roll, if you make the int roll, you get the
D6.
d6. Yeah.
It's percentile dice either way. I rolled under my int. I'm happy. I succeeded on dog sled training, and then I'm going to roll for, I think I said radio use. No, I do not succeed on radio.
No. It's the daddy, not dada, the daddy.
Wow, 2 6s.
Nice.
Not going to complain there.
I am up to 4 in drive dog.
Well, that's 400% more than your average professor in the street. So
That's less luck you're spending later. So
yep, it's all good. But so yes, you continue on a southeasterly heading pretty much for the next 4 days or so. Pushing southward into the cold grey sea and into the Southern Ocean with its interminable swell. Of course, at these latitudes, there is no land to stop the swell from circumventing the globe. So the seas are remarkably powerful. The wind shifts hourly. It's bitterly cold, and they are even in the easy weather that you're going through, according to the captain, quite fierce. The ship pitches and rolls, thrumming in the swells. Those members of the crew and expedition that haven't gained their sea legs, which I believe all of you did during the Pacific crossing. are just absolutely miserable. The relentless heaving of the deck making life a quiet hell, but it's at least possible for courses and so classes and so forth to continue. Then, on the 23rd of October, the barometer plummets in the early morning hours as a fierce gale sweeps in from the west. By 5 o'clock, the wind is blowing gusts of up to 50 miles an hour. Captain Friedenberg turning the ship to run with the storm, but for several hours the Gabrielle is at the mercy of wind and wave, tossed from peak to trough by the fury of the elements. You're taken on the wildest roller coaster ride of your lives, but not really an enjoyable one. More than half of the expedition is helpless with nausea, and those of you who remain have difficulty even walking on the deck, so fierce is the ship's pitching motion. Small unsecured objects clatter and roll about your cabins. If you're lucky enough to be up and about, you're sent out to make sure that cargo and equipment in the labs doesn't get loose and smash itself against the walls. Then, shortly before 7 p.m., the fierce wind dies, and the black walls of clouds to the west dissolve suddenly, and you're treated to a magnificent sunset, banners of orange and green and gold fusing and chasing one another across the lowering sky. It's quite a nice surprise ending to a memorable day as the Gabrielle turns south once more on their back to the original course. The 24th breaks clear and cold, with bitter winds sweeping in from the south, carrying the chill that stuffs your noses. You can feel the cold of every breath you take. Ice rime starting to build up on lines and railings. And after the rough ride of the previous day, the ocean seems as smooth as glass, and you make excellent progress. But the captain, knowing what's ahead, orders the crew to rig for foul weather. Heavy lines are rigged fore and aft along the deck to be used as handholds and guides when needed, and much loose equipment is stowed and put away as you continue south. The 25th brings with it a weird, shadowy world. You push forward at reduced speed through thick, freezing fog. Rime thickens on all the exposed surfaces. Frost points grow across ports and windows, and the deck becomes slick and supremely dangerous. The captain reduces speed once, then a second time, as visibility drops and the sea calms. The first iceberg is sighted at 2:40 p.m. A huge old glacial table some 40 yards across, weathered and crumbling, its sides undercut in 100 caves from the workings of wind and water. Other bergs soon follow, looming out of the mist like ghosts. By sunset, you pass close to a dozen, each trailed by its little flock of chips and shards. One of the floes is a deep greenish black, riding barely above the water, but almost half as long again as your ship. And towards sunset, the barometer begins to drop. Captain Friedenberg turns the ship heading east, unwilling to push into the field of bergs at night in rough weather. But by the 26th in the morning, nothing has arrived. So you steer south yet again, in flurries of heavy snow past widely scattered ice floes. Then, as you've made your way into the floes, Sometime shortly after noon, the barometer starts to plummet, and within an hour it has fallen lower than any of you have ever seen. 850 millibars, even less. A solid wall of black clouds pours in from the southwest with breathtaking speed, falling upon you in a wave of howling wind and spray. You're caught in the grip of the terrible storm. Gusts well over 60 miles an hour clutch at the booms and wires, hammer open doors, and seems to tear away wood and canvas covers before they can be battened down. Immense waves rise high overhead, crashing down across the decks with hollow, thundering booms. The Gabrielle rings and shudders with every attack, healing and plunging deep into the grey Antarctic waters. The crew suffer and struggle in the engine room and on the bridge, trying desperately to bring her bow around before the ship is torn apart by the force of the storm. It's all but impossible to stand. Walking without handholds is out of the question. All around, the air is full of the screams and groans of the tortured ship as its metal plates are stressed in every possible direction at once. Above deck, the rain sweeps horizontally from the south, carrying with it hail and sleet that scours flesh and shatters glass. The crates lashed in the hold shift with every pitch and roll of the ship. The ropes and straps holding them in place strain to their utmost, their creaking adding to the cacophony above. The storm keeps on. Hour after hour, the ship wallows on. Again and again, the bow disappears beneath the wall of waves. Time after time, watery hammer blows slam against the superstructure and cover the bridge windows in rime. Below decks, you huddle miserably in the lounges or in your cabins, clutching bowls and basins. The ship's kitchen is awash with water from pots swept off the stove, but the cook and his mess boy struggle to prepare a hot meal. Then, as you're preparing for what will turn out hopefully to be a hot dinner, so just around 6 p.m., everybody can make listen rolls.
As we try to hear through the storm.
Yep.
An old pastime of sailors.
Valentina failed.
My pappy wouldn't be proud.
Nope.
Charles succeeded.
Arguably, I think we can call an extreme somewhat more than merely succeeded.
One might call it extreme.
Oh, I thought I rolled a 20, not a 2. Yes, I very much succeeded for once.
Close to the crit.
Oh, yeah. Well, in the midst of all this cacophony, it's Charles who hears the terrible tearing crash from somewhere forwards as the bow of the ship slams downwards into a trough. It's repeated again and again as the Gabrielle heels and slews, picking up on the rhythm of the ship.
That sounds like something that needs to be strapped down, right? As a
Yeah,
very not nautical person.
it does sound like it's quite probable that something just got loose.
All right. Stoddard, for all that he's not a seaman, has definitely been on a number of trips, and is basically gonna try to. Is gonna assume this is an all hands situation to try to get lashed down. Um, and he'll go up. If he doesn't hear or see other sailors, he will bellow for them. Or if
Mm-hmm.
there's I think sometimes there's a bell for for getting support. But we'll have to see what he sees when he's up on the deck.
Absolutely. So, how are the rest of you reacting when the emergency ship's bell is sounded?
I'm going to take that means I see something worth hitting the bell.
Yeah, I'm up on my
Valen-
feet and rushing to the deck or wherever the bell would be.
Valentina's running towards the bell, running towards the danger.
I'm completely and utterly confused about what a bell means, and I'm like yelling, "Please stop! I'm just trying to sleep."
Like the sensible person, Roger is.
Why? Why are we doing this right now? Someone make
I
it
don't know.
stop.
No one explained this to me. I'm not a sea guy.
You're checking sanity over here, just trying to close your eyelids, and the rest of us are pushing water out the barrels.
Well, you do manage to gather a goodly group of 6 or 8 off-duty sailors between along with the rest of you as you look out, and it you can now all hear the rhythmic rumble of something is loose in one of the forward holds somewhere, and given the what all is in there, which is anything from just regular from picks and shovels to the aircraft to the gasoline tins, um, it might be bad. Now, fortunately, given the respite of the morning, the ship is now rigged for heavy weather. So rope, there's coils of rope hanging by all the doors and the hatches, but there's fundamentally a few practical issues. Um, Obviously, there's the gale and the heaving of the ship, the icy conditions of the metal floor of the metal deck of the ship. Um, the winds are strong enough that they're probably going to try to tear. If you open one of the doors, you can feel the door just being picked by the wind and trying to fly out of your hand and slam open, which means that the dark rain outside would try to seek its way in. But yes, it's very wet, very dark, and very moving outside.
Is the only way to where we need to get things strapped down through the top?
Well, you're back.
We want an explosion. We've already had one fire on the ship.
So you're back by the main wheelhouse. You've got the hatches forwards. There are access hatches for each of the main cargo hatches, but you'd have to get out there and find which cargo hold has the problem, probably get down there and fix it. So there are ropes running longitudinally and along the ship, so you have something to hold on to. Um, the seamen that you have with you, if will absolutely suggest that you make use of the the rope coils by the doors to secure yourself to one another. That way, should somebody slip and lose their grip, they at least have the aid of everybody else as opposed to merely being immediately swept overboard. Because, of course, every minute or so, crashing into a new wave, and that tons of water just sweeps down the deck. The biggest problem right now is just how dark it is outside, I think.
Would there be any spotlights or anything on the ship that we could turn on, or anything like that? Any exterior lights at this time?
Nothing exterior that's going to be much use, but you can absolutely grab storm lanterns from the officers' mess, and
I was literally going to ask, do we have any storm lanterns or torches? So, yes.
Valentino grab one of those, or two of them actually.
It'd be like showing up to an angry mob without a pitchfork. We can't go on an expedition like this without storm lanterns.
so you gather up what safety equipment you manage to find and make your way, and of course also pull on as much clothing as you can, um, at least what you have that passes for waterproofs, while still being fairly warm. But yeah, the wind is just tearing the air, cutting like a knife into your throats and lungs with the chill. Exposed flesh numbed in seconds. Your breath is whisked away in streams of mist, lost into the storm. Um, there's flying ice and spray that make your flashlight beams solid columns of white against the darkness. Visibility is less than 20 feet. And of course, the decks are rimed with ice, slick, and freezing water washes knee deep against the hatches with every breaking wave that you pass through. And the sound is immense. The boom of the waves and the constant shriek of wind so loud that you have to shout full volume to even hear yourself. But hand over hand, you pull yourself along the ropes to the hatches. I'd like each of you to make or to attempt a dexterity roll, please.
Is this a good time to spend luck?
This is a good time to spend luck.
Does that include me, who's hunkered down?
Sorry, no, you're yeah. Roger is safely out of the immediate action here for the moment.
I'm going to spend 9 luck.
I feel that this is a valid use of luck.
Valentina got a hard success.
Yeah. Since the option is basically spend the luck or risk being swept overboard by the waves.
Hmm.
Looks like Wigglesworth's got a decision to make as well.
Sure, I'll spend luck.
Wonderful.
You could also push the roll, Doctor.
Can I?
Oh, absolutely. The risk is, of course, that if you fail the push, you're going to basically end up head first into a foot of barely above freezing water, which is going to waterlog you enough that you'd have to recover back to the cabins and change out completely. So, time penalty, basically. And then try again. So I would say on balance, you probably just want to spend the luck here.
Well, it sounds like I want to push to me. I'll go for the push.
Oh, go for the push, absolutely.
Close, no cigar.
Yeah, yeah. So Edward is overwhelmed by one of the waves that sweeps his feet out from under him as he tumble ass over tea kettle, as it were, and is just completely drenched. It doesn't take um, a lot of intelligence to realize that he is going to turn icicle very quickly unless he gets back into the cabins. So a couple of the mates will hand him back, as it were, keeping him tied up to them. So you separate the tied up group into two, one returning to the main superstructure of the ship, and the other pressing on through the dark and stormy night. So the two of you remaining plus the four, I call it five, sailors, make your way over to number two hold. So second hold from forward. You manage to open the small single man inspection cover, which leads down onto the steel rung ladders. And you can hear the thumps and tearing rumbles as you open the hatch. Perhaps more concerningly is the thin, oily scent of kerosene that fills the air. As you lower the storm lantern, you see that two of the four great engines belonging to the Boeing aircraft have broken free of their straps and are loose in the chamber. With each pitch and shift of the ship, they roll and bound about the compartment like gigantic steel bowling balls. The remnants of their crates are wooden shards scattered about the floor. Everything in the hold shows the scars left by the careening motors. The two remaining engines are still secure. Their crates are battered and crushed on one end, but the motors themselves are not greatly damaged. The boxes containing the wings of the plane are dimpled and crushed in several places, and the plane itself shows huge dents and gaping rents in its belly and along the fuselage. The pallet of kerosene tins that was secured against one bulkhead is smashed and askew. Its flammable cargo liquid spreading from crumpled containers and sloshes around the deck with every pitch and yaw. Shadows dance hugely in your dim glow. But you realize that you don't have a lot of time. This could get quickly a lot worse. In the kerosene smeared chamber, a chance made spark might start a fire that could sink the ship if it descends through the floor of wooden beams onto the rows of gasoline drums, which of course are in the compartment below. Any thoughts on how to how to deal
Stoddard
with?
is swearing and trying to figure out are there like rings or things against the wall? Like the best thought I can think of is tie on one side of the wall, and when the ship tilts, everything against it try to loop and tie off on that side, like basically try to corral it. That's all I can think of.
Absolutely, there is a lot of D-rings, cargo securing hooks, etc. There are probably miles and miles of rope. Um,
Like get
it,
get
that,
something
that, that,
tied off.
that's certainly a that feels like it's a plausible plan.
I know, and the Leonard who hasn't come into play. That this is. I think I know what he's going to be doing off scene for the next few weeks. So Stoddard's like he swears a blue streak and is he's kind of look at like if they're okay they kind of go in this pattern. It's like okay, I think if we tie off there when the ship tilts, as long as we don't get crushed, we can get a rope around and anchor it and then just keep anchoring it down.
Is there somewhere I can put this lantern where it'll be secure, or do I have to be holding it? Otherwise, there's a chance of breaking.
No, you can.
Are there hook? Are there stuff that's
There's hooks by the side of the ladder that you
okay?
could hang them on. Um,
I'll I'll put the lantern there so I can help fasten stuff down or lash down stuff down.
and of course, you've also got, as it were, 5 burly sailors uh, to help out as well.
Which is good because Stoddard is not burly. He's more wiry.
But given that, it's a little bit of a game of Frogger for those who remember the 80s. In the you have these two huge, practically man-sized solid metal chunks flying around. You reckon that you might not have enough time to have the entire group of the 7 of you get down and onto the floor by the time that the, as it were, either one of the 2 engines comes flying over, given the movement of the ship. At least the movement of the ship is fairly regular. And Charles Stoddard, at least, is academic enough that he pretty quickly, I suspect, works out the 93-second period of oscillation with the basically, if once that engine gets there, if we can get it secured, we'll have enough time to catch the other engine before it comes crashing into us. sort of the math of the motion, as it were.
He's taken. He has enough science that he can do the math.
Yeah, yeah. It's video games 1933 style.
It's from his geology and dealing with rocks.
Yeah. He just didn't quite expect to maybe get crushed by them. So I think I'm going to ask for a throw roll from somebody to basically take a. You can, whilst you're even on the ladder, you can lash rope to some of the cargo hooks, get hold of a cargo net, and prepare it so that you can essentially, as you suggested, snag one of the engines as it careens past.
So Chuck's got a 25.
Same for Valentina. So, do we both get a shot at it, or do we have to pick one and
I
go?
think between the two of you, I will give you somebody make the roll, but with a bonus die.
It's up to you.
uh, I can give it a try and hope my luck doesn't. My normal luck doesn't hold.
You're on mute still. You're on mute, Stoddard.
Sorry, push to talk doesn't work when I've clicked the other tab. Um, so 35 was my lowest roll. I can spend 10 luck to make it work.
Mm-hmm. That sounds fair. So you managed to basically secure one of the engines, which now leads to the second part, which is I need everybody that's there, so both of you, to make luck rolls.
I failed because I've spent so much.
I missed my luck roll by 1.
I would like to point out
Uh,
that at the start of game, I actually had enough luck to beat an 80.
well, fortunately, you are somewhat shielded by the fact that you're holding down a large aircraft engine, rotary, so you get to add 25% for the purposes of this roll. So I think we're okay.
Yes, we're okay at that point.
Yes, the second engine careens past and would have rolled straight over you, apart from the fact that it careens into the secured engine and bounces over it. And so then we need a second throw, yet again with a bonus die, as need to try and catch the second.
Would you like me to try this one?
Sure.
Ew. I gotta get a bonus die in there. Yeah. I failed. What would happen if I push the roll?
If you push the roll and fail it, you're probably going to be the separator between the rock and the hard place.
Well, Valentina is probably not going to realize that, so I think she's going to try it. Do I still get the bonus die for the
You
push
still
roll?
get the bonus die, yes.
Well, that's not good. Oh, nope. I failed, so that's going to be some... This is going to hurt.
Yeah. Let's see how much. $56 normally, so I think we're going to go. So that's 13 points of damage.
Yeah. Glad I got those extra hit points. That is half of my hit points, but we're playing pulp now, so I don't believe I have to roll a con roll.
For the purposes of this, I'm going to say you don't need the con roll.
Okay.
So yes, I think we're on pulp hit points at this point.
Valentina would probably scream as she's smashed between these engines, hoping that something didn't break.
And she is yeah, and that scream is barely heard across the hole, let alone outside, with the the screaming of the metal of the hull and the the rumbling of the engines, or the engine rather. Um, Let us see. I'm going to. Okay. That's not particularly good. That's close enough, I think. Okay. And one of the sailors has about as heavy an encounter with the rolling engine as Valentina did, but not being of investigator grade, the leaves more of a red smear than any real effect. But one of the other sailors does manage, after a bit of time, to throw a cargo net around the careening engine, and with the help of everybody else, well, with the help of everybody in there still standing, manages to secure it down. Um, the two loose engines are in really bad shape, obviously cracked and dented, so they're useless. Um, Yeah, the Boeing. Well, neither of you are, I believe, have uh, are pilots, but doesn't look as though it's going to be much use. The fact that the fuel tanks are punctured, the fuselage is smashed and twisted. Um, but probably more concerning is that a good half of the kerosene tins have been breached and the contents has run into the hold. Um, I would say go ahead and make a spot hidden roll for the two of you.
How does a 5 sound?
A 5 sounds extremely good. So it doesn't take Chuck too long once he's managed to catch his breath from the exertion to take a look at the cleats that were holding the straps onto the engine crates, and you can see that they've been very carefully corroded. It would have been basically impossible to spot had the cleats still been in place. But this looks like yet more of Henning's um, sabotage.
Uh, more, profanity. God damn it, fill in some blanks. Um, it's just like the refrigerator, the tubes, the coolers. This was done. The problem's still on the ship. We got to check everything to make sure it's tied down. Uh, Clarification before I go any further: the sailor that is the red smear, is he dead
He
or
is,
injured?
as far as either of you two can see, he is dead.
Okay. So I don't want to be callous about that. And Wigglesworth isn't with us, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I can't have the doctor see him. I don't know if he's even taken uh, a chance to look at it. He's gonna. Jesus, I'm sorry, everyone. My mic's been over here, so if I've been really faint, my mic was 2 feet over there.
You've been good.
I'm sorry.
Is
The
so, but is it possible that this was done before, and now that we've hit rough weather, it broke free?
That's what that's what seems to be the case. Yes, given that it
Stoddard has
seems.
not gotten to the it could be pre-existing. He's kind of in a bit of a tizzy. Uh, so you're saying it's obvious the other guy's dead rather than just injured. So I'm trying to think if he
Uh,
would
the,
sailors.
the rather misshapen head would tend to suggest that survivability is poor.
Someone get a doctor. I things don't look good for him, but this isn't my expertise. We got to check all of the tie downs, so something else doesn't come free and cause even more accidents.
Valentina's go hunt for a doctor because she is not well. Probably limping along.
Yeah, and probably sort of being dragged more than limping even along back to the staterooms. Um, we'll forego. There's enough sailors around. We can forego the need for dex rolls, as it were. Meanwhile,
Yeah, So yeah, with whatever sailors come down, or it is Stoddard's kind of in a, like, again, it's not occurring to him that this was old sabotage. He's just like, not more of this. He does not want anything to blow up on this ship. He's kind of angry. He's a little freaked out. This is kind of how he's dealing with the accident where someone just got squished next to him. So it's that, like, really focus. I need to make sure this is done safely. Um, type, not dealing with the situation well. It's productive, but he's not dealing with it well.
So I guess this is where uh, Roger gets to step to the fore as you're rudely woken up uh, out of yet again trying to go to sleep with um, some quite dramatic crushing injuries. Um, I'll let you suggest whether you want to go first aid sort of to start off with, or whether you just go straight into medicine.
Wait, I have injuries, or there's people
Oh,
in me?
Valentina specifically.
Oh, okay. So she's coming back to me to say, "Uh-oh, there's problems."
Yeah, they've laid her out on one of the tables in the officer's mess.
Now this I feel like I can handle. Okay, there's no loud alarms going on. All right, just focus on the patient. All right, where are your injuries? I think we're gonna go straight. I think we gotta administer first aid first to make sure that not that the major injuries are taken care of. So that's where I'll go first. Where's the stupid roll?
Really quick, should I roll sanity because of the guy getting crushed in front of me?
That would be a good idea. Yes, absolutely.
Why
Same
would you
for me then,
suggest that?
Stefan.
Valentina as well, please. Yeah.
Stoddard succeeded, which is where he's got that focus. We're doing the thing. Because
Valentina
I don't think we've seen
succeeded.
enough death for him to be hardened to it yet. I assumed harden is a thing in pulp.
Yeah.
So it's that, especially for Stoddard, because it was his plan. Like, he really needed to roll on that one.
Oh, absolutely. And Valentina gets.
I got a hard success.
Yep, a hard success, but more importantly, Roger got a success on the first aid roll. So, Roger, go ahead and roll a d3.
Ooh. There's no shortcut for D3, is there? All right, let's roll a D6.
Oh, yeah,
Go half.
we'll go.
That's usually, yeah.
There we go. 2.
2. So, Valentina gets 2 hit points back from the tender ministrations of the not so trembling Dr. Tremblay.
This
I
is
got
what I
back
live
to half
for.
health, so. You don't have to be so happy that someone got injured.
I
I don't.
normally I'm fighting people.
No,
Like,
I just imagine your character is just so delighted to be working on me. Like, what are you doing? Just don't be happy about this.
it's been so long since I've been able to do this type of work. It's what I live for. Thank you, Valentina.
It's a traditional amount of wrapping up bruised and probably cracked ribs and so forth. And I would say go ahead and make a medicine roll as well, just sort of for long termish. Let's keep a.
Oh, I'm good. I think I did even better on that one. Yep.
Oh, an extreme medicine. Okay, good. So, no.
Definitely those ribs were broken. I think I can actually set one in place. Like, yeah, there we go. You should heal a lot better this way. I can
Don't
tell you
need
having a
for
few
a
ribs
week.
out of place is not a good thing, especially the lungs don't sit right afterwards. So
Sweet. infections, etc., etc., etc.
Okay. One quick question before I hit mute. Um, for a day of rest in pulp, is it just still 1 hit point, or is it like 2?
For now, it's one.
Okay, just checking.
That may change as I then mentally make a note to actually go back and reread the reality and decide on what the level should be. Um, but yes, unsurprisingly, Starkweather is not best amused. Well, in between bouts of regurgitating what he managed to put down of last night's dinner, um, which does rather temper his tantrums a bit. But he's insisting that, as ever, there's only forwards. 3, 2, 1 plane, doesn't matter. We're continuing on. That storm continues for a full 2 days, calming only gradually by the morning of the 28th. Visibility remains low, the sky lost between flurries of heavy snow, but it's probably safe to turn the ship southwards again towards in the calmer seas and head in towards the pole. Throughout that day and the next, the ship weaves its way carefully through fleets of giant icebergs. Progress is steady through the steady but slow. Ice mountains looming up through the murk and pass by without a sound. All that can be heard above decks is the faint whine of the wind, the hiss of waves, and the cries of the crewmen on lookout at the bow and stern. By the 30th, you're pushing through just constant thin sea ice with large ice floes everywhere, flat sheets as much as half a mile long. It's clear you've reached the edge of the pack ice, and the pack is indeed loose and running. But there's no gaps. It's still not safe to turn south. The following day, your ship's westward progress is stopped by ice. To the south and west, in all directions, the sheets and humps of the pack extend as far as the eye can see. The sea is flat, the sky cloudy, and the air clear but cold. Even the usual swell of the sea is dampened by the presence of ice on all sides. After so many days at sea, the unmoving deck feels strange underfoot. You go back east, searching for clearer water, pushing slowly through a thin crust of sea ice that cracks and splinters beneath the bow. You skirt the edge of the pack for another 2 days without finding a way south. However, just after 3 o'clock in the morning of November 3rd, a lookout spots a broad open lead of clear water arrowing to the southeast through thicker floes. Encouraged, Starkweather orders the captain to press on. By noon, you've pushed 20 miles into the pack. Walls and cornices of ice rise to port and starboard, and the chunks and panes of sea ice atop the lead tinkle musically as you push your way through. The ice rises and falls on either side, slowly rubbing and crumbling in blocks as big as a man, now and again splitting apart with sharp gunshot retorts. The barometer begins to lower once more towards sunset, but you push on. That night, another storm hits, fully as powerful as the one last week. Winds up to 70 miles per hour, blown ice and hail, heavy seas. But this time, You're in the pack. Around the ship, the ice moans and shatters from the force of the sea. Huge bergs roll and grind against the Gabrielle as she tries to turn to clearer water, but there's nowhere to go. Again and again, the ship clangs and heels as spines and shoulders of hard ice grind against the hull. Armored plates groan and yield, but don't break. Everyone huddles in the mess, praying, whilst others toil or simply hide. There is little else to do but wait. The ship survives, miraculously it seems. The deck is awash with ice, and great seams and gouges can be seen over the rail. But the storm passes with the night as swiftly as it came, leaving behind a new world. To all sides, the solid walls of the pack are broken. Narrow cracks and threads of open water show at every hand. You turn southward again, pushing gently into the pack, forcing your own way carefully beneath a smoking blue sky. All hands are required on deck to help push away the smaller bergs with long poles, or to repair the damage left behind by that squall. The ship's engines roar and rumble as she inches up to a floe, nestling softly alongside, then churning the sea behind with all the power she can bear. Usually the ice yields. Again and again you press forward in this way, heavy crashing thrums resounding through the hull. The pack ice on all sides is very thick and very old. Weird hummocks and spires rise up at odd angles. Layers of dark and light ice, like striations in ancient stone, can be seen at every hand. All around are the colours of the sea: white, green, and every shade of blue, shifting from instant to instant and sparkling like cast diamonds in a stray ray of sunshine. Throughout November 4th and 5th, you push onwards through the pack. On the morning of the 5th, you get a radio report from the Tallahassee that it's trapped deep within the ice, not more than 300 miles to the east. There's no way you could help the other ship, but from the satisfied look on Starkweather's face, it's probably just as well. On the 6th, the wind dies out and a thin mist descends upon the sea. Ghostly vaporous fingers rise from the water and curl around the ice. The colours of the sea and sky blend and twist eerily off the pack. Distant objects blur and reappear like illusions. One minute the lookouts can see the horizon, the next the nearest bergs are all that can be made out through the haze. About 9 o'clock that morning, a cry is heard from the lookout as a darkened mass on the far side of an iceberg comes into view. As you get closer, the bow of a trapped whaler can be seen protruding from the ice, half frozen and adrift. It's First Officer Turlough who surveys the wreck through binoculars. It's the Wallaroo. She disappeared last autumn during a squall. No one has found a trace of her until now. A discussion is held between Starkweather, Moore, and the captain, to which any of you who wish are certainly able to be present. It's in the, as ever, in the officers' mess. and they decide that they're going to put out a small boat from the Gabrielle and go and go and explore. Um,
I believe this is also a case of maritime law where we kind of have to, don't we?
yeah, and and you have to make sure that are there survivors? If not, claim the salvage rights, etc.
I admittedly only know about this part of maritime law and the salvage right, like required to check for to offer aid and the resultant salvage rights if there is no one because of a different Call of Cthulhu scenario.
Ah, the derelict is indeed a Sandy classic. Ah,
Is this something that we're going to go on, or have the ability to go on, or
oh, sorry.
no?
Yes, you're invited but not required to go along.
Well, Valentina will, just because it's a story, make trouble. It's interesting. Uh, I lost track of how many days we were since I got hurt. Am I
I
back to
think
full, or
I think we can say you're back to full at this point.
okay. It's probably gonna be pertinent information here in a little bit.
Um, as an aside, when we aren't basically stuck huddling during the storm, Stoddard is uh, he keeps checking the fastenings on the hold. Again, there's a part of him that's convinced there's another saboteur, and some survivor's guilt over what happened earlier. So he's coping by somewhat obsessively checking things. I'm not saying he hasn't missed things. I'm just saying he's checking. So if he did miss, feel free to mess him up more.
Absolutely. I would say go ahead and make a spot hidden roll for Chuck. So far,
That's
you're
a success. I think I mean, he did the tie down check during the first storm, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with he's done it enough. He's gotten really good at where the tie downs are, like what to look for.
Absolutely, and he's decently confident that everything that remains is solidly tied down at this point. Um, that does not, of course, necessarily extend to various personal belongings, valises, boxes of bottles, etc., in various cabins. Um, but at least there's not been any major damage on on that, other than just lots of mess being made. Um, Valentina is going along. Anybody else going along in the small boat?
I feel like I want to go. Keep an eye on Valentina because she's been having a hard time more often than not. And the other thing is, I think I'm just getting bored and I've been drinking too much.
Um, I'm gonna go with probably Stoddard's been codgerly enough that he's getting politely volunteered for the mission to get him out of people's hair.
That sounds eminently believable. How about Edward?
Might even be Suze who tells him to get over there.
Professor Wigglesworth is going to warm himself by the fire as much as possible.
Ooh,
He is smart.
absolutely. Take advantage of there actually being enough room to maneuver, uh, not only in the officer's mess, but particularly in his shared cabin. And actually, they're being that strange noise that it's been so long since you've heard. Quiet and solitude. So the longboat is put into the sea, lowered away, and you make your way over to the derelict. Um, you see that the hull is split in half, approximately at the midpoint, the eyes completely encompassing the foresection, whilst in the aft, the distinctive twisted metal of a boiler explosion scars the hull. Eerily distorted whistles of wind careen through the misshapen pinnacles of ice. Um, a line is thrown from the longboat um, with the ship's hook drawing the longboat in, and it's tethered to the wreckage, and you all carefully climb aboard. Um, without any real issue. Um, so you come aboard near the midsection. As you look around, you stumble across misshapen parts of skeletons, flesh stripped bare, and frozen bodily fluids encrusted within the wood they lie upon. Um, Go ahead and make sanity rolls, please.
Stoddard just makes it.
Valentina is surprisingly fine with this.
Yep, it's just a single point for the particularly gruesome bodies. There's little remains of the central portion of the ship. It looks like an explosion of the ship's boilers buckled the hull and blew away much of the deck. The corroded, ice-shrouded remains of the engine's hulk below open to the sky. The few human remains in that area are mostly bits of charred and blackened bone. Um, you do come across several skeletons lying on the deck towards the rear of the ship, arranged in neat rows. Um, there's you come looking further, you can see the crew
Like
quarters. Sorry.
they're in neat rows, as in like in an abnormal way, like they've been placed
Yes.
that way after they died, perhaps.
Yes.
The question remaining is, I know where Stoddard's brain's going first is because he's not going to jump to supernatural. Is these were laid out before everyone died, but we're going to see if that holds up.
That just makes the ritual sound even more hardcore.
Ah, yes.
And Valentina is documenting all this on film if she can. So
Absolutely. Go ahead and make an arts photography roll just for fits and giggles for a.
just made it.
Yep. Um, it's surprisingly hard just because it is so cold out. So the fine manipulation required to handle her camera is difficult to achieve, but she makes it work. So there's really two sets of rooms here in the after structure that you come across. One is the small and cramped 8-foot square rooms for the crew quarters, which are empty of bodies, but many contain shredded and mouldering linens, cabinets at the foot of each bed with personal effects, so dice, cards, pictures of family, tobacco, razors, etc. Also, along the walls, there's the remains of several nets that contain stiff, discolored clothing. There's also, perhaps more interestingly, what's probably the captain's quarters. It's a little larger room than the others. A once luxurious 10 by 16 room contains the remains of a feather bed, a desk, and a trunk. The trunk is bound by iron bands, and the desk has been badly weathered by the sea air. Looking inside, you find that the drawers are lined with oiled leather, which has allowed their contents to survive. You find the logbook, along with several letters from the captain's family, a photo, and a fountain pen.
I was gonna say Stoddard is going to look for the logbook. So he's gonna take note of that. So we should bring that over to
Yep.
the captain.
Looking for.
He'll kind of idly flip through it to see if like when they got lost. Like he's not like actively searching for it, but he's like, oh, we've got this. Kind of you flip open something and look at a couple pages. And because he's kind of like, where does it, what he said it's been missing for a year. How long has it actually been gone?
Also, as well as the chest and the drawers with the logbook, um, along with the logbook, you find. Let me get this. A note penned by the captain, available as the SS Wallaroo in the campaign notes. As well as there is also the dried and frozen remains of the captain lying in bed, fully dressed, with a pistol beside his outstretched hand, an empty whiskey bottle nearby. Uh, the logbook is written in quite a obscure penmanship, so I'm actually going to need an English roll from anybody that tries to read it.
The logbook, he said. Yeah, I'll give an English roll. Probably what's gonna happen is he flips through and he goes, "Wait, this is I'm having trouble reading this," and then he's gonna actually look closer. In language, he said.
Yeah.
Language own. I fail by 4 points.
English is my second language. Would you like me to try?
Sure. It's more a case of the atrocious penmanship than anything else. So,
This is worse than Starfish.
unsurprisingly, the trained eye of a medical professional uh, deciphers even the worst penmanship.
What? These scribbles make sense. I write prescriptions like this all the time.
Indeed. And the last entries tell of the ship running into a squall, the explosion of the boiler and death of most of the crew, and the Wallaroos' subsequent impeachment in the pack ice. The healthy survivors apparently set off in boats to the north, leaving only the captain and two others too injured to be moved. The final entry wishes his family well, praises his crew, and wishes them all good fortune. And that's dated 2 weeks after the accident, which then goes along with the note. I don't know if anybody's capable of actually reading that, or if I should read that out.
I think I can read it. Give me a second. March 12th. It is over. My hand is wholly useless now. Loss of the gangrene and the red lines of infection have spread past the tourniquet and up my arm. There is nothing to be done. My own stench disgusts me. Bovers passed on in the night. I'm no Shackleton, no Mawson to face the odds and overcome them. I'm merely an old tired soul who has lost the gamble and will die alone upon the ice. The horrible endless ice. It is beautiful but heartless. In these past few days I have come to hate its cruelty. It it cries and whispers and moans to me in the still air, grinding hopes and prayers away in the mindless hostile fury. I pray the others got away. There is nothing for anyone here. Even the whole Even the whales are long gone. Should anyone ever find this log, let me praise once again the excellence and skill of my officers and crew. Their loyalty and stout hearts are without peer. I wish them well and pray that they are now safely homeward bound. I give my love to Nancy and the boys. May they find happiness in years to come. I only regret I cannot hold them to me one last time. God forgive me for what I'm about to do. Stephen Willard, Captain, SS Wallaroo.
And finally, and perhaps most intriguingly, you come across a leather pouch that, when you open it, can find that it contains several gold coins with oddly shaped sea creatures depicted on them. Sort of,
A lot of tentacles.
no, not so much tentacles, more sort of merman-ish, but with an odd body form, sort of as though. Actually, merman is probably quite a good description of it, because it's basically a triangular fish-like shape, but just bulkier.
So clearly there is technically a mythos thing going on. But from a character who has no concept of that. Um, I, I'm going to go with Stoddard probably makes some extrapolations to other more grounded folklore about legends of the sea. The wildest he might go is, oh, maybe maybe it was something about Atlantis or something like that. That was a whole crazy fad. Um, I do say fad because there definitely was a rather insane man fabricating stories about it. So that's where his brain's going. Goes, huh? I wonder, and he's trying to sort of like place it among more standard known uh, seafaring mythologies. So he's like, oh, okay, he must have got these maybe. No, maybe they don't look like they're from this island, but maybe it's in one of the neighboring ones, and that's just kind of where his brain's going.
I'm gonna look at those coins. Do they look like they're worn? They have.
They're They're worn in the sense that they carry a great deal of age to them.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
they're smoothed down, as it were. So it's like to it, um, if I don't know if Roger has ever come across museum exhibitions of ancient coinage, so Babylonian, Mesopotamian, Roman, sort
And
of,
the stamp seems to have worn down almost
yeah.
from being used. Okay, so interesting. I guess he was a fine collector of coinage, this gentleman. Hmm. Well, I certainly leave that to the scholar, to you, Stoddard, to add to the collection. I'm sure there's some value to museums for this one. I I don't know if there's anything else here, but I'm curious about the bodies. That just I want to go back to that.
Hmm. Yep.
That just that piques my interest because of, I deal with death and it's odd to see this having been done. So I go back out and does it look like a bunch of the ones that are lined up there? Do any of them look like from the original accident? Like any of them are burnt, or are they just all
Yeah, there's some that still have signs of burns or
from the original accident?
yeah,
Okay. And they're just kind of all lined up in a row, like somebody was just bringing them out to give them their final rites, I suppose. It looks like, okay. Hmm.
yeah. At the very least, it looks highly organized. Um, Now, from the log entries, if the captain had a couple of weeks before he succumbed,
And he was the only survivor, it seems, right? He doesn't mention any.
correct. Yeah,
Still,
it was the unfortunate the unfortunate scenario whereby the crew quarters were straight over the boiler when it blew.
yeah, there should have been some crew at other places of the ship, though, which is
Well,
kind of
yeah,
odd.
you would have thought sort of on the bridge. Well, and there is also the as you say the survive the note that the surviving crew headed off in the lifeboats.
Ah, yes. And then the captain stays with the ship, of course.
And unless there's anything else that you want to look at on the Wallaroo, the uh, the group gathers together again, makes its way down into the longboat, heads over to the Gabrielle, is hoisted on board, and you set off, passing deeper into the the ice pack. Um, it's probably about 6 hours or so further steaming when I'm going to ask for a spot hidden roll from everybody.
So important question: does anyone take the coins?
I gave them back to you, Stoddard.
That was out of character. Did anyone take them? Stoddard didn't take the coins. He was well, actually. Oh, he's an archaeologist.
Yeah, I was gonna say they had.
Yeah, you know what? I originally was thinking he wasn't going to, but I think as an archaeologist he'd find this interesting. Because he I'm going to go with he probably doesn't recognize it, though he's like, they are of interest. So yeah, I will take Stoddard will take the potentially cursed things. Um, Also, if you're curious about some of the stuff that where I was mentioning with Atlantis, there's a book called that came out that treated Plato's story of Atlantis, that was, you know, sort of the origin, as like fact, and it came out in about 50 years before game happened. It was in the 1880s, called Atlantis: The Antediluvian World, and that spawned a whole bunch of fiction based on it, uh, tied into stuff with like Lemuria, the Lost Continent, the story of Atlantis. Like, so there's a lot of pulp fiction going on at this time about it. So there's sort of that like, is this real or is this a hoax vibe going on. Yeah, he will totally take those. But he wanted to make sure to take the logbook back to the captain. Um, should we take the letters so they could potentially get returned home?
Good idea.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing to do.
So yeah, he'll take the letters, basically bundle them together with the logbook, and hand that over.
Perfect. So yes, at which point, spot hidden. Oh, Edward, and you're the one that happens to be standing out on deck some 6 hours later in the bracing cold, but looking across the ice floes and the various carves, you see a shape in the ice, black, crumpled. It's the remains of a lifeboat. And if, when you bring it to the attention of a crew member that happens to have a pair of binoculars on them, they can just make out the name Wallaroo on the forward piece.
Good lord. Yeah, I'll call it in. Wallaroo, ahoy! And I'll give it a big point.
Um, the Gabrielle slows down for a short while, but there is in reality no easy way or no safe way of getting through the ice leads to the remains of the boat. So you end up leaving it behind. Um,
Oh, wow. Ice not packed down enough to move across either, I take it.
right. Yeah, you're basically on loose ice floes, so there's cracks and crevices and all sorts. You'd be jumping between icebergs, basically. Um,
Rough.
and you keep going for about another 5 days. The fog shrouding the ice, burning off only briefly when the southern winds bring sharp flurries of snow. Each day the same as the last, and of course, no break between the days. An endless succession of grinding thrusts against the icy walls of the lead. Sometimes progress is made, sometimes not. Forward motion measured in feet, at best in yards. But then, on the 8th of November, the last lead closes over, both before you and behind. The Gabrielle is trapped in a narrow stretch of water, her hull sandwiched closely between the frozen walls. The pack beyond is utterly silent, save for an occasional sharp report or a long drawn out groan. And Starkweather says that, well, there's basically two choices. We wait for a storm to come around and free us, or we blast our way out. I favor the dynamite. What about you?
Do we have very experienced people on board for this?
Starkweather is the one who's been giving the demolitions classes.
That
So
doesn't make me feel better.
Right. I'm with you. It's like, well, that's not really what I asked. It's like, oh, that actually might say a lot.
So the
Was it Big
guy,
Sue's? Did Sue's have any of that?
let's have a
I'm really
quick
not sure.
look.
It feels like it's up Sue's alley, but
Uh,
yeah, I've been going for the polar survival classes personally.
yeah, I thought I went with navigation. I figured that might help us in a pinch. But
But what I've
demolitions.
learned of polar survival is that maybe
Zeus
we don't want to wait.
does not do demolitions.
Yeah, only so many points to go around. Well, that being said, I still don't like us waiting around to get packed in like the Wallaroo. I mean, we're bigger and we're better prepared, but even still, it could happen.
Let's have a quick look at.
More importantly, we can't fall too much more behind the other expeditions.
Right. Money, 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 money.
Bodhi, is it any good? Oh, that's not too terrible. So the question is, does anybody feel like giving Starkweather a bonus die by helping out, but of course, in doing so, putting themselves on the ice next to him during the
With dynamite?
yeah.
I mean, don't we have to have a certain amount of skill in it? Stoddard's got 2 in demolitions.
That's a
That,
good point,
yes,
too.
providing you have a non. I mean, everybody has a 1%, so um,
I know how to light the wick, or what is it called? I don't even know. See, that's my 1%.
Yep, that's the dynamite. That's 1%.
Yep.
That looks like
Now
dynamite.
now what do we do?
Like Valentina will usually volunteer, but even she's hesitant at this one. Like that's a man she doesn't trust with dynamite. That's not.
No chance is Dr. Wigglesworth doing this. Sorry. Yeah, just no. Sorry.
I, all I can think about is the last time we were given dynamite in a game and we blew stuff up. And of course, the game master was like, "Why did you do that?" It was like, "Well, you gave us dynamite."
What a
it,
self-righteous mother.
this is Call of Cthulhu. Why
Giving
would you
you
not
dynamite. What did you think was going to happen?
Yep.
You know what? It it may end badly, but it's likely to end better for all of us if someone helps him. Stoddard will do what he can.
Team player.
I will give Splutty Starkers an advantage die because I'd rather that
Please.
happen than the whole ship blow up.
That's a good one.
Let's see if I can
Oh,
get
man.
this.
Can anybody see Big Suze's sheet?
Yeah, she doesn't have it, unfortunately.
Wait, did you say everyone has a 1% chance? I might actually technically have 3. Not that it makes a difference, but because it was 0, I think I just added 2 to
You
it.
learned something.
Yeah.
I did take demolitions course. That's why I have dice in it.
Yep, that's the dynamite, and here's the fuse.
With let's see. Shred players. Yep. Somehow I am managing not to roll. I see what I think I see what's going on. See if I can get in this way. Probably. I managed to lock up my die roller. I'll just do this. I'll do it manually. What was anybody worried about? So, with an extreme, um, it all goes to plan. Now, the first explosions do seem impossibly loud, and sprays of ice fly everywhere. Puffs of smoke billow outwards. The ship is forced forwards with the full power of her engines, once, twice, a third time in grinding surges, and the lead groans open with a roar as everybody cheers. You probably end up using explosive about half a dozen more times over the following 2 days. Each time, after a try or two, the ship pushes forwards, her wrought iron sides scarred and dented but unbroken. November 10th, the wireless brings the news that the Acacia has established their base camp on the Ross Sea barrier. From the bridge of the Gabrielle, the ice stretches unbroken in all directions. The open water of the Ross Sea seems impossibly far away. The next day, however, the 11th, you find thinner ice. It's a ticklish passage. The pack is loose and the heavy floes slam together without warning, threatening to crush the hull. But Captain Friedenberg manages to save the ship time and again, nudging ancient bergs forwards to thrust others aside with a delicate hand. On the 12th, snow flurries once again close the world to within a few yards of the ship. The expedition pushes gingerly forwards, lookouts straining on all sides. Hours pass in the cold wet of the storm. Then one of the lookouts calls, "A sea! A sea!" The captain orders all engines stop. As the rumble and motion ceases, everyone suddenly knows that it's true. The ship is rocked gently in the slow swell of an open sea once more. For all that night and into the following day, you push on through the pack. The fog lifts early on a rough horizon of pancake ice and heavy bergs below a water-dark line of distant sky. Thick sea mists close in again soon after, locking the world away once more, but the ice is loose and easily shoved aside. At 10:20 on the morning of November 13th, Gabrielle pushes into open water at last, to the sounds of celebrations from the crew, and turns southwest towards your chosen goal. Early on November 14th, 28 days after leaving Melbourne, you sight land to the south. A few hours later, the horizon is filled with the sight of the Admiralty Range humbling the land below you. A tired but elated crew at last reached the Antarctic and Ross Island. On deck, the sun breaks out through the thinning clouds as you near Ross Island and you draw cautiously into the icy waters of McMurdo Sound to the west. Mount Erebus looms overhead, smoking constantly. The region of the Ross Sea between the island and the mainland is still solid with thick ice which stands 6 to 8 feet above the surface of the water. The barrier, easily visible even here, rises upward like a wall, several miles distant across broken ground. "We have arrived," Starkwater elatedly declares. "Captain, anchor the ship. We shall begin our assault from here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Antarctica." And with that, we will close for tonight. Thank you for watching.